DMV. And I'm Mimi McDonald.
Record. It's life. It's not just life. So without further ado, Jennifer.
Good morning. It means so much for me to see all of you here this morning to support this fabulous organization, Donate Life Northwest. I am Jennifer Browning, and I am proud to say that I am a kidney transplant recipient. For the first time, I truly understand why so many speakers start off by saying how honored and humbled they are to be here. I most definitely feel this way about being chosen as your speaker this morning. For reasons that you're about to hear, I have an incredibly strong personal connection to this cause, and I am so honored to be chosen as a spokesperson for the amazing recipient community. As for my story, I figure it makes sense to begin where it all began. I started out as a healthy, normal baby girl, but things took a turn for the worse when I was a little over a year old. I became ill, screamed in the night, and went limp. When I was rushed to the hospital, it was assumed that I just had a bad case of the flu. Unfortunately, it turned out to be much worse. I went into complete renal failure and was deemed to be a lost cause. My little body was shutting down so fast, and they really didn't know why. Heroic doctors found a way to get me through the initial crisis and save my life. I was on dialysis for several months, one of the youngest patients to undergo this process at the time. They had to place the shunt in my leg rather than the arm because I was so small. They really didn't know how to do this on such a little baby. It was all one crazy, scary experiment. I can only imagine what it was like for my parents to have to watch this all happen to their little girl. After several months, my kidneys started up on their own, and I was able to recover and live a mostly normal life. In retrospect, it is believed that I had contracted the E. coli virus, leading to hemolytic uremic failure syndrome. This is a condition where blood clots form in your circulatory system and damage your kidneys. Although I was out of the danger zone, the damage was done, and we always knew that I would need a transplant someday. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't give that fine doctor in this picture appropriate recognition, the young guy with the groovy glasses there. This is one of my heroes, Dr. Fred Orther. He accepted me as his patient when no one else would. I was just going to be a bad statistic. I know that if it wasn't for him, I would not be alive today. I had the immense pleasure of meeting him as an adult not too long ago. After hearing stories about him my entire life, in my eyes, it was a little like meeting Superman. Truly one of the highlights of my life. I went on to live a wonderfully active and healthy life. I was a rough and tumble tomboy as a kid, played various competitive sports, went to school, worked, traveled. I lived my life. However, through all those years, the weight of knowing what was to come definitely weighed on me. Years and years of doctor's visits and uncertainty about my health definitely colored everything that I did. I was almost 25 years old and living in Los Angeles when my health started to go downhill, and I was finally sick enough to be considered for a kidney transplant. I was most definitely in denial. I honestly felt that I was doing just fine. I actually even wondered if it was really necessary. I mean, I was working full-time. I was swimming every day. I even biked the LA Marathon a month before my transplant. Weird, right? At the same time, I was actually quite relieved that it was finally time. I was ready to face this lifelong threat and get on with my life. Being a competitive athlete, I looked at it as another challenge, something to beat. and I was very geared up for it. My mom stepped up to donate her kidney immediately, of course. She would have it no other way, and like a typical hero, she will vehemently deny to this day that she did anything special. In fact, she will tell you that it was an honor for her to be my donor, and she wouldn't trade it for anything. Not only did she bring me into this world, she gave me the gift of the rest of my life. As all recipients know, this is a gift that can never be fully repaid, and a simple thank you will always seem desperately inadequate. I mean, how do you thank someone for giving you the rest of your life? But I just have to say it once again. Thank you, Mama. The transplant itself was about as uneventful as such a thing can be. I made a quick recovery and was back to work within 3 weeks, and back in the pool soon after. It wasn't until after surgery that I realized I had actually been truly ill. I realized it wasn't normal to pull over and nap in the car on the way to work. Good point. To have blue fingernail beds or to have itchy skin. I was energized and euphoric. I had done it. I had accomplished my ultimate goal. You can only imagine what that felt like. In my infinite 20-something wisdom, I felt that I'd already lived an amazing life and I didn't need anything more. I had always assumed that I wasn't going to live long. For as long as I could remember, I had been told that it was a miracle that I was alive, and I had received surprised looks from my doctors every time I walked into their office looking healthy. I had never looked at my life post-transplant. I had no idea what that looked like. But little did I know, the best is yet to come. Although I was thrilled with what I had accomplished and my newfound level of energy, I didn't know what direction to go in for quite a while. I was lost. I was desperately searching for a way to pay the world back for everything that I had been given. My own transplant experience gave me an intense interest in the medical field, so I started searching in that direction. One day, while working as a respiratory therapist at a local hospital, I had the opportunity to observe a couple donation coordinators working with an organ donor in our ICU. I was immediately entranced and set about plotting to become one of them. I was thrilled to be offered an interview about a year later and had tears of joy in my eyes as I drove home afterwards. When I was eventually offered the job, I screamed at the top of my lungs. I had finally found that thing that I was meant to do, my path. I could help bring hope to those who so desperately needed it. Everything had gone so well for me. I wanted more than anything to give that back. My biggest passion that drew me to this position was in wanting to help other recipients to achieve the health and happiness that I have. It was hard to imagine a more direct way to give back exactly what I had been given. And while that still is a huge part of my connection to this career, I ended up being just as awe-inspired by the donor families that we have the privilege to work with. To witness the highest form of human goodness on a regular basis is both undeniably awesome and humbling. I will always be amazed by how many of these families are thinking about others when they are in the middle of what is most certainly the most traumatic time of their lives. It constantly renews my faith in mankind. Being able to comfort these families during this time gives me immense satisfaction. I feel a deep fulfillment in playing such a vital role in the transplant world. I am a better person for what I do. I am so proud to be an organ donation coordinator. My newfound career opened my eyes to even more opportunity to be involved in the transplant world. It all started with the transplant games. For those not familiar with the Games, it can be described as the Olympics for transplant recipients. But it is so much more. It is the most amazing gathering of humanity that you will ever see. Transplant recipients, donor families, living donors, supporters. You will see such things as an entire auditorium cheering the last swimmer out of the pool, children with transplants running into their parents' arms on the track, and donor families cheering on their loved ones' organ recipients to the finish line. Tears of joy and gratitude flow continuously. The opportunity to attend my first transplant games in Pittsburgh in 2008 fell in my lap. I have to say that I really wasn't initially excited to go. I'd always been very resistant about being labeled by my disease, and to be even more